Got my eyes straight ahead, got my head in the game. With the red light on, I'm just waiting for the change. Keep my head down low.
Hi, Jay Fallon. Thanks for listening, Aussie Police Watch and Slippery Slope. So there's been a lot of questions asked about the police response regarding the Bondi terrorist shooting on the weekend, where we've seen, was it over 15 people? I think it's 15 people, maybe 16, have been killed because of that, due to the actions of those two, the father and son. So a lot of questions raised about the police action. Have police, general duties police, are they adequately trained well enough? Have they got adequate support? Do they need better support? As far as weaponry goes, do they have weaponry that is sufficient when you have something like this going on? The issue is no one was prepared, no one was ready for something like this to happen. I would have thought, in considering the events of the last couple of years, the war in Israel, the protests that we've had here, the incitement to violence that's gone on from the Grand Mufti here in Australia, declaring jihad against Israel, I would have thought that given these details, you would have more than just a couple of general duties. As far as I know, some very clean-skinned general duties officers down overlooking a crowd, such a substantial crowd. I would have thought you'd have more than just a couple of officers when you're dealing with a Jewish festival. We've had some very large protests about regarding the Palestine-Israel conflict, some very heated protests. So I would have thought, hey, maybe we go down and oversee this this celebration with more than just, is it 2, 3, or 4? There's varying numbers saying, but very small amount of general duties officers. Maybe we have more than just that. We need to be a little bit prepared. I'll just go through this headline. It came through from the Sydney Morning Herald. It says, police were young and outgunned. Where was the backup at Bondi? Here is the problem that I see, is that all police services, police forces around Australia, we all have specialist areas, specialist police. Here in Queensland, you would have your general duties, and you got your PSRT, then you have your CERT, special emergency response teams. They're very specialised in the work that they do, and they are more the kind of officers that should be dealing with snipers, with people who are going up with rifles or shotguns and this kind of thing, and trying to kill people like this. The problem is, okay, I'll only speak for what happens in Queensland. We've been trained. Some officers get trained using a rifle, and then you can carry out a rifle. You can carry it around, but it's not something that generally happens by general duties police. They brought in rifles. Generally, they're just left at the station these days. I don't think I've ever seen. I remember when they first came out, and I was working up north. Every now and then, you would see a senior officer get the long arm out and would take it on duty. However, it is a little cumbersome, and you don't really need to be driving around with it all the time. I would have thought, however, that when you've gone down to a festival like this, like I said, in today's political climate, and what's going on over in Israel, with Israel and Palestine and the protests that we've had, I would have thought that even with general duties officers there, for one, you would have had more than just at the most 4 officers, and 2, you would have had several of them with the rifle, so you could, and also maybe get up and have some better vantage points so you can oversee the crowd and not just be down in amongst the crowd. However, that's not really the training that we receive, especially when it's just general duties police. I suppose because I came out of surveillance, COVID surveillance, I tend to think a little differently. You're always looking for the high ground, looking for what security risks are taking place, always looking for, getting a baseline of what's going on. I've talked about that before. go out, look at the crowd, get a feel of how everyone is, what everyone's dressed like. You get the baseline, well, this is the mood in the area, and then see anyone who doesn't stand out, who goes, above or below that baseline, who stands out. The problem is in general duties, you're not trained for that. You're not really looking for those security risks. Anyway, we'll go through this. It says on Tuesday, the New South Wales Police Force sent its heavy hitters to Bondi. This is a couple of days too late, mind you. The ones trained for violent conflict with access to the state's most serious weapons. They were 2 days too late. On Sunday, it was General Duties Police, the kind who usually deal with motor vehicle accidents, retail theft, and pub brawls. Now, this isn't anything against these general duties officers, mate. They were thrown into the thick of it. I'm thinking more about this is the thing that the senior officers, we have the same problem here in Queensland. Senior officers, they just, I don't know what it is, that they just don't seem to think about these things quite clearly enough. They don't take enough precautions, it seems, at times. Like I said, I would have, anyway. So they're the ones that found themselves in the thick of it, responsible for stopping the deadliest attack Australia has witnessed in 30 years. Some only graduated from the academy months ago. A few months ago. Some still live with their folks. None expected anything more than a hot shift at the beach. Attendees estimated there were about 4 of them at the festival when the shooting began. Multiple sources said police refused to confirm on Tuesday night how many were there. Premier Chris Minns said there were 2, and reportedly later clarified to 3. This is I keep talking about how we need police to be more transparent in their actions, their behaviours. They've refused to confirm the number. You made a mistake, you screwed up. Confirm how many people there. You need to be more transparent, but still, police, government officials, they don't like transparency here in Australia. It says they were armed with pistols. I believe New South Wales still use Glocks like Queensland does. That's what I've seen anyway. So with pistols, which the vast majority fire once a year. Now, if they've just gotten out of the academy, they would have just had their training. They would have done barely much more than what they've done at the academy. So General Duties Police, you practice shooting at no more than really once a year, distance of about 15 metres. 1 minute they're watching the kids blow bubbles, and the next they're facing 2 terrorists who are intent on causing mass fatalities. These gunmen deftly wielded what appeared to be bolt-action high-powered rifles which kill at long distances, and shotguns which cause a terrible mess at short ones. As one police veteran put it, on the condition of anonymity, so they could speak freely, the local cops were outmatched and outgunned. You don't bring a pistol to fight a shotgun or a rifle. Police are facing mounting questions about their response to Sunday's massacre, in which 15 people died. I thought it was 16. Anyway, that's what they say here. Whether top brass underestimated the risk to that event, whether the General Duties Police were trained well enough, and whether those young constables should have been better supported and access to more effective weapons. So look, there is no way I believe you should be criticising these young officers who are there. It's got nothing to do with them. They are just young police. Like I said, a couple of them straight out of the academy. They're just young police. They're doing their job. None of this is their fault at all. Okay, they're thrown into the thick of it. They acted with bravery. The issue is here. You've got high-ranking police who aren't thinking, who aren't preparing. Like I said, you've had a war going on for the last couple of years. You've had mass protests here in Australia, huge protests against Israel, pro-Palestinian. You've had lots of threats of violence. I did an episode on the slippery slope. You've got the head of the Islamic Council here in Australia, the Grand Mufti, I think they're referred to, was his name Ibrahim Abu Muhammad, who declared jihad on Israel. And yet no government official, no senior police officer thought, wow, the Jewish people are celebrating a festival. They've got Hanukkah coming up. Maybe we should have a fairly reasonable police presence. And also, not just junior officers, you need senior officers. Like I said, I know it's different because of the work I did. You tend to think a little bit differently when you're looking at security and the type of people who are out there and what security risks there may be. But you needed senior officers there who would have thought, okay, we need to look at the crowd and see if there's any kind of threat here. We need to go and get, a high point and see if we can scan a lot better. We need greater numbers. We need to have a couple. If in a crowd like that, such a large crowd, we probably need to have at least one rifle, but maybe two, two officers carrying two rifles. But no one's thought of that. And why has no one given any consideration to these kinds of security precautions that we could take? They're so simple. If you had more police and a couple of them with long arms, well, with rifles, I think you could have prevented this. These shooters, these gutless, cowardly shooters, would have maybe reconsidered their actions and thought, well, but they could only take this action because police aren't prepared. And like I said, this has got nothing to do with the young constables who are there and whose lives are at risk. Their lives are at risk. All these people's lives are at risk because the senior police officers did not take enough precaution, and the very thing that they are paid for, and that is to consider risk. It seems like no one has done that at all. No one has. The simple thing of going through, these are all the events coming up, these are what different groups, different organizations, the events that they have going on. It's very, very likely, I haven't looked and haven't confirmed this, but generally a group like this going to celebrate down on Bondi Beach, generally you would have to register, notify the police, notify local council what you're doing. So they would have known that this is coming up. I'm going to assume police would have known, but yet no senior police have had the forethought to think we need more than just a handful of young constables down there. It's either naive or just plain stupid. At the end of the day, like I said, this is nothing, throwing no shade at all at those young police officers there. And how about that other officer who shot, I think he shot one of the gunmen from 40 meters away. That is a shot to do with just a handgun. That's amazing. Great work. But the senior officers who did not have the forethought to think everything going on, maybe we need more security, more officers, more than just their sidearms. The ones who are in the offices at headquarters thinking of these things, they're the ones that should be raked over the coals. We should have some job losses with New South Wales Police because of that. Anyway, that's just my thoughts. We need to stop just sending out young police officers with no experience. You need to have older police officers from more diverse backgrounds. When I say diverse backgrounds, I'm not talking about diversity rubbish that they bring on. I'm saying diverse backgrounds, I mean diverse policing backgrounds. So, people who've had experience in surveillance and analytics and, other specialist operations, because they will think about security issues a lot more than just someone who's only been in the job for a couple of years and only done general duties. This is what you need, more diversity like that in policing when you're on the ground. Anyway, that was just a few thoughts. I thought definitely some heads should roll. Senior officers need to be held accountable and stop shying away when you ask questions about what numbers are there. Be transparent, answer some flipping questions. Hey, this is all my opinion. Thanks very much. Please let me know what you think. I'm Jay Fallon.
Got my eyes straight ahead, got my head in the game with the red light on. I'm just waiting for the change.